All right. So, can you introduce yourselves and yes, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name is Kyle Frederick, and this is my wife Mallory. We both graduated from Sam Houston State. I graduated with a degree in music therapy, and you graduated
I
with.
graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Music.
But she also took the courses with me. She was originally a music therapy major.
That's how we met. Well, yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Long story short.
And but decided to change her major at the end. So, yeah.
We have one little baby who's asleep right now, but that's okay. Anyway.
About myself, I'm a musician. I grew up playing. Well, I grew up around music all the time. My family was very musically inclined. My dad played trumpet, guitar. My brother played 70 instruments or so. He started off with bassoon, and that wasn't good enough for him. Went to trombone, then baritone, then bass drum. Just kept on going. Anyways, I grew up playing the cello, and it was through the cello that I really got into music and really wanted to try to do what I could with music. I wanted to help people, but I didn't know how. So it wasn't until I got to high school that I learned about music therapy.
All right. So our first question is, what does music have to do with math?
Everything.
Exactly. Music is just basically a magical form of math, in a way.
Yeah, okay, well, it's more how is math a part of music? Because you think about rhythm, if you know the parts of music, there's rhythm, which is how the music is broken up, basically, into beats, and all of that has to do with math and fractions and all of that.
Yeah, so if you think of like your time signature in music, you got a 4/4 time signature or 6/8, and all this really is saying is that if you've got 4/4, so you've got 4 beats in a measure, and the quarter note gets the beat, and right there you've got math, because if you take your fraction,
into 4 equal parts.
So you got your fraction, a quarter, which is 1/4. That's saying that there are 4 quarter notes in that one measure. Exactly. And it goes even further when you go into eighth notes. So you take your quarter note, break it into 2, now you got 2 eighth notes, and so then there would be 8 eighth notes in a measure. So it's all about fractions, and it's all about the different, different parts of music. So,
well, a different part of music would be like pitch and different intervals that you play, and how we talk about the golden ratio. If y'all have learned about that yet, it's this magical ratio that you see all over nature and even things that man has made. There's this magical ratio that is very aesthetically pleasing, and when this ratio is examined in music, it has been shown that, like for example, different composers break up their pieces, and the way that it's structured has to do with this golden ratio, and the way the most pleasing pitches or the most pleasing intervals have to do with this golden ratio. So it has a lot to do with like the, theories of math.
Yeah. So let me just show you in kind of real life, or a real life example. What I got here is a cello, as y'all probably know, and yeah, y'all might not know it, but this is a cello, and if you take the string, this is where we got our fractions. So just think of one whole string as a like a 4/4 fraction, or just 1/1. It doesn't really matter. It's a whole fraction. So if we take this string, cut it in half, so now instead of it being one whole part, it's 2 half parts, and you take it, so right in the middle you got a harmonic. So the original note, we got the A, so it's really an octave, or yeah, it's an octave higher. So when you play it, it has a almost a pure sound to it, but it's I don't know how to explain it. It's these different layers of sounds together. But if you take this whole string, cut it in half, you get a harmonic. If you take this half and cut that in half, you get another harmonic. And like if you take this half again, cut it in half, you got more harmonics. So the fractions in music are related to kind of our one for string instruments, the amount that we cut a string in half, really. So when we place our finger down, we're making a new pitch. So that also brings us to the next thing, is that it's not only a part of math, but it's a part of physics. So you get different frequencies, different tones, and then all these work together to create another type of science. I think it's musicology, and I'm not sure about that, but I think it's musicology, and it's a study
that has
of...
to do with, like, the history.
Okay, that's probably history of music, but I can't remember what the actual...
Okay, just say what you think. Just say what you're saying.
I'm thinking it's musicology. It was probably not. Either way, it's the study of music on the brain and how music can affect the brain. So, and that's kind of where we get into music therapy.
Yes.
Along the way. Let me see. So, in music therapy, it's the study of how music affects, or it is a branch of how music affects the brain. So when we listen to music, we can be passively listening to a song or actively listening to something. So if I play any piece, so Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, even though you're just listening to it in the background, your brain is going crazy. It's lighting up with electrical signals. And this is why music can be in a therapy form. It has the ability to access different parts of the brain that some therapies can't do.
So, for example, at the place Kyle works, he deals with a lot of patients who have had a stroke or a traumatic brain injury, and so parts of their brain don't work because of that. And what he can do, the patient may be sitting with a speech therapist all day long, and the speech therapist may be trying to get them to say a word or to make a shape with their mouth, that maybe they don't know how to do anymore because their brain is injured. Well, because music affects all parts of the brain, Kyle can come in and he can assist the speech therapist, and he can add music to the equation, so to speak. And first of all, it's motivating. It helps you want to do the therapy. And second of all, actually, in this instance also, it actually helps to enhance the therapy because he can use what I said earlier about how music affecting all of that brain, all of your brain. When he adds music to the therapy, what did I say earlier? How did I say this?
I can rewire the brain,
right.
Reroute it to now, instead of accessing where speech is located on the left side, instead of using that side for speech now, we will now go somewhere else where they might have singing or some other type of musical activity, just listening, things like that. We'll use that section to now
to elicit a musical response.
Yeah.
So if they can't speak, maybe they can sing because of the way music affects their brain. So Kyle takes advantage of that and he gets them to sing, and then slowly he'll fade out the music over time so that they can be rehabilitated to speak or to walk or to move their fingers or turn a door handle or brush their teeth or whatever they need to do. Mm-hmm. He adds music to the therapy, and there's lots and lots and lots of examples that that was just one example, but he adds music to the therapy, and it really helps a lot. Take my word for it, but it does.
So you've answered, for the most part, this question, but I want to make sure there's nothing else you have to add. What does music have to do with therapy? So I feel like you've answered that, but is there anything more do you want to add?
Other kinds of music therapy.
Yeah, there's a lot of different areas that music therapy can go into. So we've got places you can go into schools, you can go into hospitals, you can go into prisons, but the idea is that music is a almost global language. It's found in the most what would we call it,
Every culture,
yeah.
almost every culture values music in some way, and so if you can figure out what that person who needs the therapy, whatever kind of therapy they need, if you can figure out what kind of music they like or what kind of music they respond well to, you can use that to help, like I said earlier, enhance their therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's used a lot here in Texas with children with autism, because like I also said earlier, it's highly motivating to use music, and a lot of times children with autism have an affinity for music. They're very good at it. And you can, like another example, how many of y'all learned your ABCs with the ABC song? That's like the biggest example I can think of, because how else can you memorize 26 things all in a row in the same order every single time? Because you sing that song in your head, and the music element of that helps you to remember it. So think about how many song lyrics that you have memorized, and then think about how hard
many
and hard.
presidents you have memorized.
Right. Think about any other thing that doesn't have to do with music, how much you've been able to memorize, but then think about how many song lyrics you know, like thousands, probably millions, maybe.
So, like, one of the things that we can do with the music, and I think this gets into one of y'all's other questions, how can music make you focus?
Yes.
One of the things that music does, for instance, like we said, it's entertaining, it draws you in, and therefore we can use the music and the lyrics that are in music to make people focus on certain things. Like, let me give you an example of something that y'all might be familiar with, if I can get it pulled up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a song for you. It's just going to be a recorded song, and if you need to, you can
What are you looking for?
your YouTube.
I don't have a YouTube.
You don't have a YouTube app? She doesn't have a YouTube
Just
app.
go looking. Just search for the song.
You want me to pause it?
Sure.
Okay.
So, what I'm going to play for you is a song that you will probably know, and you might not like, but we're going to play it anyways. It's called What Does the Fox Say? So what I want you to do is be listening for the different types of animals that are said within this song. Okay? Let me get this. Hold on.
It's not plugged in.
Some people didn't plug it in.
Sorry. I had to plug other things in. I'm sorry.
Okay. Power! Here you go. So, I want you to listen for the different types of animals that they say in this song. Dog goes woof, cat goes meow, bird goes tweet, and mouse goes squeak. Cow goes moo, frog goes croak, and the elephant goes toot. Ducks and quack, and fish go blub, and the seal goes ow, ow, ow. But there's one sound. Okay.
Anyway,
So y'all just heard the song, and
part of it.
or at least part of it, yeah. So can you recall some of the animals that were said, And I bet there's at least one of you who can recall them all in order. Maybe a few of
do
you.
it right now. Just
Yeah.
think about it.
Just think about it. But one of the things about music is that we can, it organizes everything for us. And it puts a catchy melody to it, so then we can recall things very easily because we have that melody.
And
What
we were
else?
talking about focus.
Yes, we're talking about focus.
So you're having them focus on the song.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an example, like so Kyle might do something like that with his patients. And like I said earlier, the goal is to phase the music out. Our teacher in college always said, you don't want your clients to be walking around with
In a musical.
in musical. Like, life is not a musical. We wish it could be sometimes, but it's not that. We have to get the patient to, or the client to be able to do the thing without the music. So that's how he would start working on getting someone to focus that's just one example.
Yeah, that's one example. And then there are other examples too, like in special education, you have a child with autism. He sees the world, or he or she sees the world in a totally new way, something that we can't really understand. And so one of the things that a music therapist might do is it's called the ISO principle, which is technically just meeting him or her where they're at. So if they are upset about something, and what the music therapist might do is try to play music that matches their mood, and
Or tell them to play on this drum how you feel right now, so they might be like.
So that's a way to bring them back into the real life interactions and not just kind of what they see.
And kind of going off of that, I don't know if you did this. You probably did. In working in geriatrics, that's like old people. A lot of them, Kyle, I think he mentioned dementia, or maybe when we were just talking earlier. When you get older, if you have a disease that causes, your brain cells to degenerate, you lose memory. You may not realize, you're 80 years old sitting in a nursing home. You may think that you're 16 years old and you're late for school. And so music is very naturally something that orients people to reality when they're in that kind of situation. And it can also be used to help them remember, this is where I am, this is what's going on, and keep going like that.
This is something that I do for my patients. They have a really hard time thinking about what the day is and just remembering the day, the month, where they're at. So this is a simple song that I sing with them to help them out. Good enough. Okay, so this is a song that I sing with them. Today is the 28th of January. So it goes like this. Today is Thursday, January 28th, in the year 2016 at Pate in Watauga, Texas. So the idea is that I present them all this information in a catchy little melody. And what I would do is I would
you use the same melody every day, also? Yeah.
Same melody every day. And so that way they are familiar with it, and they know that when I hear this song, I'm hearing the information about the day, the month, the week. And so the idea is to sing it in a way. It's that annoying song that gets stuck in your head. So the idea is to sing it, and together we work, and sometimes we'll leave out certain parts of the song. So instead of saying the actual day, I leave it blank. So today is, you fill it in. And this helps them to focus on where they're at, where they're located, to hopefully get rid of some of the confusion. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So, what does music do to the brain cells? They said to make them calm.
Well, kind of how we had touched on before, music actually does not calm down the brain cells.
Well, not the brain cells.
Yeah, the
it
brain
can calm
cells.
down your emotions if it's a certain kind of music.
Yeah.
But
like the music itself actually, when you listen to music, it actually lights up your brain. If you're looking at it on
stimulates all parts of the brain.
It stimulates it everywhere. So that's how we can then use music to get different reactions from a person. Whether this is, go ahead.
Do you want to finish and then I can?
Okay. So you can use music to get different reactions from a person, whether this is physical, emotional, speech related. What we do is we can use the music now to create a movement. Okay.
All right, so we got cut off, but I have another question. So, does music hypnotize the brain cells to make them calm?
Yes and no. That's the answer to that. We were talking about this and then we got cut off in the last question, but it's basically the same. We were trying to talk about, well, there's two ways to answer it. You could be asking, can you use music to actually physically and emotionally calm people down? Yes, that is very much something that people do, especially music therapy during relaxation and things like that. But if you're talking about a person who maybe has disorganized thoughts or disorganized movement, meaning they can't walk normally, or we talk about people who just can't do normal things with their hands or their feet or whatever. When music is used, it does stimulate the brain cells, so no, they're not actually calm. They're stimulated, but in doing that, it organizes them so that then your brain can organize your movement, organize your speech, organize your thoughts, whatever needs calming down in that sense. So that's two ways to answer that.
Yeah.
Do you have to have a degree to become a music therapist?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm not a music therapist, because I didn't finish the degree.
Well, it's not only a degree. You have to get the degree and the certification.
Right.
You can have the degree in music therapy, but not be certified, and then you're not a music therapist.
So yeah, the degree is just like any other degree you get at school. It's a music degree, so you take a lot of music classes, but you also take a lot of other classes that have to do with all kinds of therapies. So we took a lot of psych, we took a lot of like development, human anatomy, and things like that. And we took special ed classes, some education. We took a bunch of different things, but a lot of music, and then a lot of specific music therapy classes.
Yeah.
We did what's called practicum,
Okay.
which is, you can just finish. Practicum, which is you're going out in the community and actually doing music therapy, but you're a student music therapist. You're just getting hours. You have to have so many hours of practicum before you can sit, well, really before you can go for your internship.
It's kind of like, I'm pretty sure some of y'all have experienced ever having a student teacher.
Right.
So some college student coming in, they're wanting to become a teacher, but they have to learn from an already, I guess.
They have to learn from a professional.
Yeah, professional teacher. So
the time, they have to do the time. So you do that while you're in school. We also have to do an internship.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you do all the schooling and the internship, you take your board exam, and you have to pass the exam, and then you get your certification.
Or certificate.
So that's what Kyle did.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Why music therapy rather than normal therapy?
Why not?
Yeah, it depends on what kind of the way you're asking it. Why does music therapy work over normal therapy? I mean, you have your physical therapy, your occupational, your speech.
It doesn't replace any of
Yeah,
those
it doesn't replace any of them. Music therapy is really great because it can actually, we can use instruments to help enhance those types of therapies. So in physical therapy, we use a lot of rhythm, we use drums, And just I use my guitar a lot just to help people to transition from something as simple as from sitting to standing. So when you're going to go from a sit to stand position, it's as simple as doing an ascending chord. So we lean forward and we start going up, and then once we're at the top, it's the end of our scale, and then come back down.
So a person who has been injured may not be able to do that, and when I was talking about reorganizing your, all the things going on in your brain, the music, that pattern that he just played, kind of naturally tells you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Other things is like we can, like we said, music therapy helps to enhance the therapy. Okay,
So other therapists have all the expertise in that field.
Yeah.
And the music just adds to it.
The way I was explained this was that as a music therapist, you have the set of tools. The physical therapist or the occupational therapist has the idea that they're wanting, whether this is a movement or a certain exercise. And what we have to do is we have to find some way to use our instruments, our songs, the music itself to create that movement and pull out the exercise from the person.
Yeah. So Kyle will never, because when you get your degree in music therapy, you get just a touch of every kind of therapy you could ever do. You get a little bit of rehab, you get a little bit of psychiatric, you get a little bit of geriatric, you get everything. And so you just know enough when you get your degree so that you can go into any of those populations and just add to what is already being done and help maybe make things go faster or make things stick better so that they, don't regress or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically just to enhance whatever therapy, but there's a lot of times music can reach a person in a way that not using music will never reach them. So those are some pretty cool moments too, when that happens.
Yeah.
Is your job stressful?
It can be, but for the most part, it's pretty laid back. It's a lot of fun because you get to do something that none of the other people get to do. You get to sit and create music with a client, and I say with the client because we're not just there as entertainment. We're there to involve them to create music and therefore bring them out of whatever they're facing. So
you don't have to be a musician to get music therapy for whatever you need.
The main requirement is that you like music, and that's what
most people in the world do.
That's what allows music therapy to work so well. But the question was, is my job stressful? I work with a lot of people who've had traumatic brain injury or stroke. So what has happened is they've had an accident of some sort, and it's caused them to no longer think the same way that they used to. So they might be in the same physical body, but their mind has changed. They don't think the same anymore. So therefore,
they're impulsive.
Yeah, they're impulsive. They get angry really easily. And this isn't the case for all settings that a music therapist might work in, but in my case, I work with these types of people who might get angry or might try to do something that they can't do. So you have people who are paralyzed from the waist down and they want to walk again. And so they might try to get up out of their wheelchair and start walking. And you've got to be there to reassure them and help them out of their confusion that, hey, you were in an accident, you can't stand anymore because your legs don't work the same as they used to. So you're having to calm them down and reassure them that everything's okay, this is where you're at, and we're here to help you.
Yeah. And you have to think, with any kind of therapist, you're giving of yourself constantly all day long. It's that kind of job. It's like a teacher. They're just teaching and teaching and giving all the stuff that they know all day long to these people. And so just in general, I feel like being a music therapist can be stressful, yes. And you have to be able to, with any kind of job, but especially with this, you have to know when you need to do some self-care, when you may need to go just talk to somebody, or it kind of depends on the setting that you're working in, but it can be stressful, but like what Kyle was saying, he is rewarded every day for what he does, you know, with the people that he works with. He's very fulfilled, I would say.
All right, our next question is, have you ever got attached to a patient?
Definitely. There have been a lot of patients, because every single one of them touches you in a certain way.
Even if they're getting on your nerves.
Yeah, even if they're getting on your nerves. One of the patients that I worked with, he was he had a stroke, and he also had dementia, which is a degenerative brain disease, which means they're not going to get better. But he would, every day that I would see him, he was from Nigeria, and he reminded me of Rafiki from The Lion King. And every day he would come in, and when he would see me, he'd be like, "Oh, Music Man!" So he had this really high, squeaky voice. I can't do it justice. But it would just make me feel so good that he could remember who I was and that I meant so much to him. But we would sit and just listen to music and during lunch breaks and have a good time. But he was definitely one of the ones that will always stick with me.
Yeah, and I was going to add, part of your job as a therapist, just in general, is to build what we call rapport with the client. And so that is basically they have to respect you. They have to like you in some way in order to respond well to you.
The main thing is they have to trust you.
Right, exactly.
They're putting their life in your hands to help them.
Mm-hmm.
They've come to you for help, so you have to build a trust, and you have to build a bond with them.
And that kind of naturally lends itself to attachment on both sides. But, you know, it's a healthy attachment. You know, it's not, weird.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be anyway. But I was going to say, there was one time, when I was in school and I was doing my practicum working with a couple of older ladies, and halfway through the semester, one of them passed away. And that was kind of different. I've never experienced that kind of thing before, but kind of goes along with what we talked about the last time, is talking about, is it stressful? Yeah, because, I had started building a relationship with that client, and then something happened and she wasn't there anymore, and we had to deal with that. And then, the next week we had to come back and we had to do everything, and meet a new client, and that's just how it works. But in that instance, that self-care I talked about earlier was important, and it's good to form those attachments with people. That's part of what makes it such a cool thing to do.
Cool. So the last question, what is the salary range for your job?
It all depends, because a music therapist can work in so many different fields, and each field has its own...
You're out there overseas.
Yeah, it has its own benefits. If you go into private practice, you're able to sometimes you're able to set your own rate. When I was looking into going into private practice, I was going to be making around $50 to $60 an hour.
But you don't get 40 hours a week technically. Yeah. That's contact hours.
Yeah.
So you may only have like 15 hours of contact with a client, and then you do a lot of extra work, but you don't get paid for that part. You only get paid for the time that you're with the client.
Yeah. So overall, like a range, really. It can go anywhere from as low as $20,000 a year to as high as $108,000. But the thing is, it depends on where you're located. So
you're in the U.S.
If you're in the South, like in Georgia, Alabama, those are kind of the poorer states, so you're going to have a lower salary or lower income. While if you're further north, up in New York, you could be making upwards of maybe 60,000. But then it also depends on your job. I mean, and with that being said, if you think about the different jobs around us, those that are at higher risk, so say like miners, oil workers, people like that, they tend to have a higher salary because of the risk in their job. So people working maybe in psych or medical, they might be getting paid more than someone who's working in an education field. So.
Awesome. Well, do y'all have any last comments, anything more that you'd like to share about music therapy or anything in general?
Well, I'd say if you are looking into becoming a music therapist, you need to, one, take a look at yourself. Think about what you're wanting out of it. It takes a special type of person to be a music therapist. It involves a lot of giving up of yourself, but that's not a bad thing. Another thing it involves is you have to be creative. You have to be able to think on your feet. One of the things I've had to learn is that I can't have everything my way. And there are times when I might come in with an idea that I'm going to do with my patients, and I've got to change it on the spot because it's not working. So you've got to be flexible. Another thing is you have to love music. You can't be in music therapy if you don't love music. If you are wanting to pursue something like this, I'd suggest learning piano, learning guitar. These are the main instruments that we use.
Work on your voice because you'll sing a lot.
Work on your voice, definitely.
You don't have to have the best voice. You don't have to be, opera singer. Definitely you do not have to be an opera singer. But you need to be able to carry a tune.
Yeah.
Because they know. They know. The patients know.
The patients know. Your coworkers know if you cannot carry a tune.
Yeah.
So.
Our professor in college always said you have to be a good musician and you have to be a good therapist. It takes both. You can't just, work really well with people, but you can't play anything because you're facilitating the music. But you can't only be a good musician and not know how to talk to people.
Yeah.
And some of that they do teach you in school. Like when both of us went to college, we weren't the greatest at guitar or piano or percussion instruments. You take those classes. It's not like you have to know all the instruments before you start your degree. But
I had my personal experience. I had tried to learn guitar when I was in first grade, and I couldn't. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the ideas behind it. But then I got to college. I had started. I had already known how to play cello, and was getting the education on how to play guitar, just basics. And so what I did was I took my guitar everywhere I went. I sat down and played and kept on practicing, and I got better. And so same with piano. If this is something you want to do, you just got to put in the time, got to put in the effort, and just work really hard. Stick with that math too. It helps out.
Especially because being a music therapist many times involves taking data of your progress, how your clients do, and that involves a lot of data taking.
It involves statistics. So you need to know percentages, which are just another form of fractions. So
it's not the most high level math, but it is involved.
Other than that, I mean,
it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a fun job.
And even if you don't go into it, you should tell someone what you learned today, because there's a lot of people who don't know about it, and there's a lot of people who could probably benefit from it if they knew that it was out there. So.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it.